All right, welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're joining me today because we are diving into something absolutely crucial and honestly pretty fascinating. We're going to explore the operational dynamics and the immense on-the-ground impact of non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, in India. You know, we constantly hear about the vital work they do in the news, we see their campaigns pop up online all the time, but today, we're actually going to look under the hood. We're going to unpack the mechanics of how they truly operate. We'll explore the structured systems that allow these organizations to function, raise serious capital, and deliver critical aid exactly when and where it's needed most.
Okay, let's just dive right into this with a quote straight from our sources. It's amazing to see so many NGOs working for flood-affected people in Assam. This right here, this anchors our whole conversation today to a very real, very human situation on the ground. When a sudden disaster strikes, literally upending thousands of lives in a matter of hours, it's often these independent organizations standing shoulder to shoulder with local authorities. They're out there deep in the mud and the floodwaters, providing an absolute lifeline to people who have lost everything.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the impact in Assam floods, then look at how Indian NGOs operate, funding the humanitarian frontlines, regulation, FCRA and DARPAN, and finally, sustaining public trust.
Section 1. Impact in Assam floods, the humanitarian frontlines.
You know, when chaotic disaster scenarios actually unfold, the immediate response literally means the difference between life and death. But NGOs don't just rush in blindly. They collaborate closely with local authorities to deliver highly specific, targeted relief. We're talking emergency food and safe drinking water, urgent medical camps fully equipped with hygiene kits, and temporary shelters to get people out of the elements. And then, as the waters finally recede, the focus shifts. It moves to livestock support to help restore local livelihoods and distributing school kits for long-term community rehabilitation. It's a massive, meticulously coordinated logistical effort.
Section 2. How Indian NGOs operate. The process behind the relief.
Now, what's really interesting here is the behind-the-scenes reality. There's a highly structured three-step operational blueprint that nonprofits have to follow long before a single blanket or bottle of water is ever handed out. First up, they identify a specific social problem through really meticulous surveys and on-the-ground needs assessments. They absolutely rely on hard data to know exactly what the community needs. Second, they develop a rigorous project proposal. This means setting clear, measurable objectives, mapping out a strict budget, and defining a realistic timeline. And finally, step 3, the organization has to actually go out and raise the funds, approaching donors to bring that vision to life. Section 3. Funding the humanitarian frontlines, where the money comes from.
So generating the capital required to pull off these ambitious projects, that is universally considered the toughest part of running an NGO. They have to rely on a pretty diverse set of financial pipelines just to survive. You've got individual donations, everything from small monthly gifts to massive online crowdfunding campaigns. Then there are government grants for various welfare schemes, foreign funds from international entities, and huge grants from major philanthropic foundations. But check out that second point, corporate CSR funds. Under the Companies Act, eligible companies in India are legally mandated to spend at least 2% of their average net profits on approved corporate social responsibility activities. This is huge. It's a legal framework that ensures the corporate sector is actively and consistently partnering with NGOs to fund these essential initiatives.
Right, so once all that capital is raised, how is it actually spent? Obviously, you have program expenses taking priority. That's your direct relief, like schools, hospitals, and food distribution. But let's be real, you can't run a rescue operation without operational support. You need salaries for the doctors, teachers, and social workers. You need infrastructure, like the buildings and vehicles required to physically reach those flood zones. You need admin budgets to cover office rent and professional accounting. And crucially, there's a specific budget for monitoring and evaluation to empirically prove the job is getting done, plus a dedicated emergency reserve for completely unforeseen disasters. It's a really delicate, highly professional balancing act between direct humanitarian relief and the absolutely necessary overhead.
Section 4. Regulation, FCRA, and DARPAN, the bureaucratic guardrails.
To ensure all of this money is used correctly, legally, and efficiently, India has set up some incredibly strict regulatory frameworks. Let's look at the first major bureaucratic guardrail. NGO DARPAN is the Government of India's national database portal running under Niti Aayog. It meticulously manages voluntary organization registrations, it drives transparency initiatives, and it determines who is even eligible for government grants. Basically, think of DARPAN as the ultimate central interface and transparency checkpoint.
If an NGO wants to collaborate with government ministries or get government funding, they absolutely must be registered, documented, and fully vetted through this system.
Next, we have a really vital law called the FCRA, or the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Regulated directly by the Ministry of Home Affairs, this is an exceptionally strict framework, and it's legally mandatory for any Indian NGO receiving international funds. Foreign money just cannot flow into the country unchecked. No way. It has to clear the rigorous legal hurdles of the FCRA, which mandates that the NGO maintains dedicated bank accounts, files very strict annual returns, and adheres to comprehensive reporting to ensure absolute accountability at a national level.
And aside from the transparency laws, there are two critical tax registrations that are super important to understand. First is Section 12AB. This essentially registers the NGO's income as tax-exempt. Why does that matter? Because it ensures the absolute maximum amount of capital goes straight to the cause rather than being eaten up by taxes. Then you have Section 80G, which offers incredible donor benefits. It allows citizens and corporate entities to claim income tax deductions on their eligible donations. Put these two together, and you have mechanisms perfectly designed to smartly incentivize charitable giving, all while maintaining strict legal and financial compliance.
Section 5. Sustaining public trust, the accountability loop.
So what does this all mean? How do these complex legal frameworks and tax laws actually translate into public confidence? Well, public trust is never automatic, right? It has to be earned. On one hand, trust is actively built by delivering highly visible grassroots results, like in flood-ravaged Assam, providing publicly audited financial statements, maintaining that strict legal compliance, and proving measurable social impact. But on the flip side, that trust is incredibly fragile. Factors that destroy trust include a lack of financial transparency, any misuse of donated funds, weak oversight by governing boards, or carrying high administrative expenses that just don't translate into real-world impact. It's an undeniable relationship here. Transparent, good governance completely secures public trust, while a lack of financial clarity destroys it.
And that brings us to the ultimate accountability loop. Let's actually walk step by step through the life cycle of a single donation to see how trust is practically sustained. Step 1. Donors contribute their funds. Step 2. Those funds enter a highly regulated, thoroughly monitored NGO bank account. Step 3. The NGO implements the project, buying materials, hiring staff. Step 4. The organization conducts rigorous monitoring and evaluation of the real-world results. Step 5. An independent statutory financial audit takes place to verify every single expense. And finally, Step 6. A comprehensive impact report is delivered right back to the donors. It is a continuous, unbroken loop of accountability, literally going from the donor's pocket directly to the relief project and right back again in the form of a fully transparent report.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. If absolute transparency is the true currency of humanitarian relief, how does understanding this rigorous framework change your willingness to support the next crisis? Think back to those floods in Assam we talked about at the very beginning. Think about the incredible, detailed operational scaffolding and regulatory guardrails we've unpacked today. I really hope this explainer has given you a profound new perspective on the intricate mechanics, the immense challenges, and the undeniable impact of organized disaster relief and philanthropy in India. Keep learning, keep asking great questions, and I will see you in the next explainer.